So my goal of going from understanding how I can increase my revenue or what happened to the revenue to an agentic system. So building the agent has become the easier part, but finding them, the right ones, monitoring them, and making sure that you can control them if there is any intention to go rogue or if there is a hack that happens.
Moving forward, it's time to start our day with the very first talk. I'd like to invite Aarti Kapur. She is partner at AI Platform and Solutions, Tiger Analytics. She'll talk us about Agentic AI in the enterprise, what it means for us. Give it up for Aarti.
Hi. Good morning. So happy to be here. So last year around this time, I was in the UK. I just landed and I usually carry my backpack with my laptop, and I booked an Uber. I got into the cab, and that cab driver looks at me and he says, a Brazilian guy, he says, "You're in IT." I told him, "No, I'm in AI." So he looks back and then says, "Will AI take our jobs?" It's the same question which keeps coming in all of our minds. And this was a very casual, on the roadside conversation. But people are taking AI as, some have fear, some have curiosity, some have anxiety, some have, just feel that some are awestruck, right? It's mind-blowing. I take it with a lot of excitement, and I feel what is coming is going to be a very exciting future. And there is a lot in store for us which will change the way we fundamentally think. And so today I wanted to talk more about how my experience has been, what our enterprises or the enterprises I work with thinking and what they are doing, and how this can transform, my take on how this can transform the future as it is. But for sure, right, the anxiety that is there, it's not unfounded. Because the pace of change and how things are evolving is so rapid. AI, it's not like AI has never existed. It was a small lab setup. There was deep learning, there was image recognition, there were, how we would use neural networks in the old ways. Small set of problem statements, more researchers, higher costs of usage, and the time to process was much higher. Like if you take an image, you process, make a machine understand or a neural network understand, it will take a long time. And this adoption was also much slower, therefore, of those technologies. So AI was never new for people who know, and I've been working with those, and it was a small set of the work I used to do then. But how this curve has exponentially shaped with technology coming in and adoption also following suit is mind-blowing. All of us got to know about ChatGPT, and that was, maybe that was like the global onset of what people started calling AI. But it was something like that unlocked seemingly the potential of what is possible. Even enterprises started thinking how we will use it, what we can do with some capability of something which understands our language. We can interact with that, and how can we use it? So certain sets of use cases started coming in the enterprise, and for our own work, right? All of us started using ChatGPT. We switched from Google fairly quickly. Then came the era of, but then those models were limited, there was hallucination, costs were higher, even context was not as much, right? You could not, after a few questions, that model would already hang up, right? You can't interact anymore. But then better models start coming in, and there was like GPT-4o, and then people started talking about agents, then Claude, and many other sophisticated models, which removed the cost barrier. At least it became much cheaper, which also removed the amount of data context you can give to the models. That was a bigger unlock for the number and kinds of use cases that were unlocked. But more recently, which was almost last year, wrong button, Claude Code brought in the real deal of actually you can use for a language which we all have, which has existed, right, which is coding. People were talking Spanish, English, Japanese, Chinese, but coding is a language which so many people use, and you could actually use these models and so effectively. And I think that's been the real step up or step change, which is Claude Code. And then 2 months ago in February, Opus 4.6 came, which is like the phenomenally powerful model. And then 2 days ago, Mythos, and maybe if we check, there's something else right now that has come in. It's, you never know how fast this is scaling. But Mythos is not released to the public because it has cybersecurity challenges still, and we don't know, where this is headed, probably to general intelligence already. But if you see the pace at which this is evolving from, and how rapidly, from decades to years to months to weeks, and then, maybe we don't know how this is going further. It is incredible, and at the same time, adoption is also following suit. So as I spoke earlier, that it was in academia, some people will use it, but industry has started adopting, all of us have started adopting, and we are also working to understand challenges, give back that feedback, and the builders are using that feedback to build rapidly. So it has become like a global phenomenon, and therefore, it is going to impact all of our lives, right? For us, for enterprises where we work, it is definitely going to impact, and it is impacting. What it means for us, right? Now we have an expert coder available. Those who did code can use it as their companion. Those who did not code can use it to get what they want to get done. You can do research in minutes. You can ask anything, get a response, get synthesized response. And from an idea to a solution, you can move very fast. Similarly, enterprises can have an expert available on demand. Enterprises can scale decision intelligence very quickly, and enterprises have started using this to automate a lot of workflows which were done manually, especially the repeated tasks can be easily taken over by LLMs and agents. And we'll talk about some of the use cases and how enterprises have also evolved in their thinking around this. So the first one, unstructured data was the easiest start point, right? Like this is called a large language model. Language is unstructured data. None of that is tapped yet. There were PDFs, wikis, Confluence, images, videos, audios, transcripts. All of this would reside in drives in our folders. We are not able to find it. We are not able to use it ever. These documents were synthesized by humans. We would read, scan through, and most of our days would go by like this, right? Reading emails, reading reams of PDFs to come up with an analysis. But with language models coming in, everybody started thinking, okay, how can I use RAG and how can I do more with and unlock the potential of unstructured data? First set of use cases at scale in the enterprise have been on RAG and unstructured data. Now this one customer that we worked with, Zebra. The Zebra makes devices. If you go to an airport, they'll scan your boarding pass, right? That black color device with which they scan, that's a Zebra device. Now the problem statement, and we worked with them for about almost 2 years now, they were like, okay, I have this handheld which I have given to everybody in retail, at the airports, everywhere else. What if I add some intelligence onto this so that I don't have to train that person what they have to do? If somebody, and they are also interacting with my customers, so in a retail store by end customers, in an airport with the people who are boarding flights and so on. What if I make this intelligent and enable that person who's carrying this device with a lot more intelligence? That's the use case we did for the Zebra company. We built a RAG setup. They added SOP documents like, okay, what if there is a water spill on the floor? What should I do in a retail store? There should be a process in which what I have to do. Or if somebody asks for a certain product, which aisle is that product in? All of this knowledge typically has to be a part of the training of that person who is in the store. But anyways I carry that device because I need it for checkout, and that device has intelligence, and I can query that and get information. So we built this use case, and it was rolled out in production, a very high level of adoption, because you don't need to train me anymore, right? Even Aarti can go to a retail store, carry the Zebra device, and can be almost as effective, maybe not fully, but like a frontline worker, because I have all knowledge residing here. These use cases were very well adopted, and the important thing to solve for this, just like an architecture of RAG, important thing to solve here was making this data readily available and accessible. Like if you have an image, it's for humans also, it's harder to understand what's in that image, but our brains are trained to do that. But for a machine to actually interpret a person is doing something, and that what is that person doing, and reading and understanding that so that you can answer a question on that is a harder part. But a lot of technology improvements happened in this space of ingesting the data and making it machine readable, which is parsing it, chunking, cleaning, adding metadata tagging, so that you can make those documents processable, readable by an LLM, and then creating a LLM ready, like creating embeddings and creating a vectorized data store for those. All of this, if you look at this layer of, I don't know if you can see the pointer, but it's very small. If you look at this layer of ingestion, processing and embedding, lot of work happened in this space and largely driven by open source. You all would have worked on it, right? Like better parsers came in, chunkers, multimodal embedding models and so on, so that all of this data can become a lot more effective for processing. And then as the models improved, this ecosystem improved significantly. And still there are relevant use cases for this as well. Now, insights were the other one. All of us have used structured data, and that's like if people at Tiger Analytics, all teams, we will be enough problem we will solve for all clients on just giving insights. Like for example, a business leader sees in a dashboard that my overall revenue has dropped. And I want to understand what happened, right? What happened in the last 1 week that there is a drop in that revenue. I will first want to analyze what are the reasons, which markets, was there a price drop, or there's a demand drop, was there any other disruption in the market? Insights would be the first thing. It would take weeks. All of you work on this, right? You understand analytics. It typically takes weeks because you have to first go to the data source, fetch the data, analyze it, then create some output which is consumable. Then somebody will analyze it and say, okay, this is the reason. But with an LLM, all these processes of writing, asking a question in natural language, converting it to code, querying that code on the data source, fetching the data, analyzing it and giving insights became very efficient and fast. You could actually go from my question in my head to an insight very quickly. But there were still, these insights at that point or the earlier stages were, I would say, more like translating the data into English language. So for example, I get an output saying my revenue drop was because there were certain demand drop and some price changes. Like maybe price increased, therefore demand dropped, and overall there was an impact in the revenue. But the insight would be for product ABC, there was a price increase. For product XYZ, there was a price drop. That would be like a literal translation of that data into English or the language of consumption. However, when reasoning models came in, which was like the GPT-4 and many more now, Claude and others, the reasoning models could actually deep dive into what really happened, right? Which was the key driver of that revenue drop. So the quality of insights have improved significantly as we started seeing more improved models and better models. So now this is all fine. RAG is there, several use cases got solved, enterprises are using it, insights is there, several enterprises are using that too. But models are improving and people's hunger to have more or unlock the power of LLMs and agents more is also increasing. So eventually the tide took us to multi-agentic systems, where the question was basically that, why do we have one RAG agent, one insights agent? Why don't we make all of these talk to each other? There is a human sitting on top who gives a goal. There are this whole sea of agents there. The agents have a particular task to perform. Somebody asks a query, reviews a query, some agent is good at RAG, some agent is good at writing SQL, some agent is good at generating insights. We put all of these agents together in one bucket and we can actually address a goal by a human. That's when enterprises started thinking, and we started working with them on, hey, it's a no-brainer, right? Have all of these agents, they perform different things, and we have a multi-agentic system available to us, which will not answer a question I asked, right? Is there a price drop? And yes or no or how much? It will actually tell me, I want to optimize my revenue. You tell me what I'm supposed to do. So the user no longer has to first go to the data team and ask, okay, give me the data for all of India so that I can figure out, which are my products, where is potential to change. Then I don't have to go any longer to the pricing team, who will say, okay, I know elasticities, I know how much price you can bring up and down in this, and therefore I will give you the most optimum price change. I no longer have to then go to the dashboarding team to say, okay, now I have some analysis, but I have to report it to my management, and I don't need a dashboarding team, but I can have a visualization agent which will build this whole for everything for me. So my goal of going from understanding how I can increase my revenue or what happened to the revenue to an agentic system where my goal is broken down, different agents perform different tasks of understanding the intent, reasoning why it happened, doing some scenario planning, fetching the data, rerunning the scenario planning, summarizing it, and giving back the results to me. So these systems have transformed how enterprises are even thinking about how we can use LLMs and agents. This therefore leads to the zebra use case we spoke about, right? So the first build or the first phase of that was make this available to me. I can ask a question, there was a water spill, I get a response, and this is like a RAG agent. The next phase, which was more like towards the end of last year, was, okay, now why just a RAG agent? I want a sales agent for me. So if somebody walks into the store and asks, I want to buy a wine for my party, it's an involved sale. But this person or this agent, which is on my device, can help the customer actually understand, okay, what is the need for the wine? Why do you want? What kind of a party is it? Is it for young folks? Is it for older folks? Is it going to be a rave party, or it's going to be a quiet, older setting party? Accordingly, I will recommend not just wine. I'll recommend to you the entire buffet that you should have for this. But what will it need? It will need access to a RAG agent. Like I need to know what are the products I sell. I need to know how much inventory I have, which is like a structured data of inventory. These are the wine bottles, these are the other treats that are available. I need to have access to prices, because eventually there is a budget that I have to optimize for this end customer, and I need to have an orchestrator which will ask the right questions to the end user and then accordingly query the results from all of these agents, and then finally recommend this is what you should buy, and can actually also go back and make that checkout for you. So it has access to all kinds of tools. So therefore, the next phase of that Zebra device became making that sales agent available, which can perform all of these actions also for you. So in the enterprise, if you think of it, right, if enterprises are using agents and LLMs for such use cases, this is how the new architecture looks like. And what is happening? This whole data, all of the data sources, right, ERP data, financial data, inventory data, pricing data, and so on, all of that data has to be made available to agents. So the first thing that has to be solved for is there has to be like a AI semantic fabric. All data it's connected to that semantic fabric, because agents will feed off of that. So data has to be agent readable. That's the first goal in the enterprises, right? Like all data has to be available to agents. Humans will of course query it, but agents is a no-brainer. There is a whole layer of all kinds of agents that are there, which are specialized in doing certain tasks. There were human teams, right? This is the finance team, this is the HR team, this is the operations team. Similarly, there are agent teams, a retrieval agent, anomaly detection agent, an insights generator agent, an HR, policy agent. That is the agent layer that is there in the enterprise. And then there is an orchestrator which understands what is the human goal. Like a person comes with a question, the orchestrator understands that, interacts with the agents layer, which interacts with the AI fabric layer, and then it can answer the human goal. That's where enterprise agents are heading towards. This also brings a lot of other challenges to handle in the enterprise, right? These agents have to be secure. There have to be very stringent guardrails, because no longer there are trustable people working on or bound by policies who will only act in a certain fashion. These are more autonomous agents, and they have to be bounded in certain guardrails and ethics and policies which the enterprise has to define. These are agents built, like if it's a global enterprise, 100,000 people, who is building what agent where? It's very hard to determine. Therefore, there has to be a way to discover these agents, also have a tagging of which agent is good, which agent might be, you should stay away. So discovering the right agents in the enterprise is one other thing that is unlocked right now. It's a problem that people are trying to address. And then monitoring those agents. Like these agents exist, these are good agents, but I still need to monitor what if an agent goes rogue. I should be able to control it. I will have to stop it to perform an action before it actually performs that action. So monitoring and observing all agents while they are in production has also become an important part of what enterprises are now thinking about. So building the agent has become the easier part, but finding them, the right ones, monitoring them, and making sure that you can control them if there is any intention to go rogue or if there is a hack that happens. These are the kind of use cases that are emerging, and very rapidly the enterprises are trying to solve for this so that they can effectively use agents, and that can unlock a lot of potential. So now, therefore, enterprises have changed, how we work has changed, how we think has changed, and what every day we are doing has also changed significantly. If you think about all these systems, right, and what has changed and what is happening, in the first two structures, there was a human involved. Human would ask, and it was more like an assistant, right? These agents are there, they will assist. I want to get an answer, I get an answer, I process that, and then the human presents that answer. Both for RAG, who will, maybe that's an expert opinion. Again, also for insights, you get some help from agents, and then you present your own insights. But in multi-agentic systems, these are not human triggered, right? These are event triggered. These are scheduled because they have become an independent entity in itself. Earlier they used to have certain types of data that they would use, right? Vector databases, unstructured, or structured databases. Now they use enterprise data systems, they use ML models, data warehouse, LLMs, and all kinds of tools and integrations within the enterprise. So the expanse of these agents has increased significantly. And the role of humans has also changed significantly. Earlier, as I said, right, the human was the questioner, the analyst. But now the human is the supervisor. You are asking something or you are setting a goal, and then after that, you have to have the expert knowledge to supervise what is the outcome, and you have to have the knowledge to be the decision maker. Can I go ahead with this or not? Which means that you need to understand data, you need to understand business, you need to understand decision making, and you also need to make sure that you can validate if the agents got it right or not. So the humans have evolved to a supervisor role, and they need a lot more knowledge and understanding, and the day-to-day tasks have been taken care of by agents. And I'll conclude very quickly, I'll run out of time otherwise, of how new roles are evolving in the enterprise. So yesterday, maybe few days before yesterday, there were all of these roles that were there, right? There were certain decision makers who would be more informed, and they'll be in a better place to make judgments. There will be certain managers who have responsibility because there are huge teams. They have to coordinate, they have to bring people together, they have to orchestrate and organize. There are analysts who are good at doing research, who know the data, who understand technology. There are builders who know coding, who know architecture, who will deploy. These silos won't be there anymore, right? We don't need these independent things because now all of them are empowered. So the new age tomorrow will look like a mix of, or a continuum of many of these skills put together into many different roles. If there is a visionary who thinks about an idea in the boardroom, very quickly they can go to a prototype, or they can actually go to a product also. A person who is a full stack developer or a problem solver, they just don't know technology anymore. They also have access to business knowledge, they also have access to domain knowledge, and they can get to, from the thinking of the product, they can actually make the product also applicable to an enterprise. So the roles will change, and all of us, irrespective of the kind of work we do, we have to adopt AI and agents in our day-to-day lives, because our roles are evolving and what we do is going to change significantly. Therefore, it's a very exciting place to be, and it's a very great time in our lives, as Sudhir was talking about, right? There have been revolutions in the past as well. This is an unprecedented one just because of the speed of change, and we have to just enjoy this piece as we get to a new world, and all of us have to take ourselves to that new world. So looking forward to more working a lot with agents and interacting with all of you a lot more. Thank you so much for this time.